Welcome to the Hinkleshop. So in this video, I'm going to take a bunch of these dowels that I have cut into little bitty coins, and we're going to glue them all together and we're going to make a table. I was going to throw these things away, and I decided that maybe I could put them to use. Maybe I could make something a little artistic out of it. So we used some hot glue and I lined them up in this pattern. They went all the way across. Then I grabbed some darker wood and I went around the outside with some largers. These are oak and pine dowels. That is spalted maple, or wormy maple, I should say, that I made the corners out of. One thing I did learn when you do this, make sure that all of your pieces are exactly the same height. It's very difficult to pour the epoxy and then surface the top when everything is different heights. I'm going to use this tape here to create the form to backfill around the dowels. A little hot glue here to seal it in. It's my intention to cut off the edge of the table when I get done pouring this, so I'm not too concerned about having that little edge there with the hot glue. Now, anytime I do an epoxy pour and I have to seal something, I actually just use the epoxy and a paintbrush and paint it on top of everything, every surface. I will tell you that it's not a good idea to use end-grained oak when you're trying to do an epoxy pour. I don't show it in the video, but there is 6 to 8 pours of clear on top of this to get it to stop bubbling back through in order to get it sealed enough. So here I'm taking the clamps off. I've got the seal on it. We don't need the clamps anymore. I have a good little bit of a layer around the bottom of that thing, so the form is actually sealed closed. And now we're going to add the color, the black. And obviously it fills into all the gaps in between the dowels. I thought it would just look kind of cool to create this pattern. Now I move it around with my hand. You would think, okay, just let it roll into spaces, it'll be fine. But I'm moving it around with my hand to break surface tension against all the little pieces, parts, and against the sidewall. Taking a torch to get rid of the bubbles. And as I said, the bubbles just kept coming and coming and coming with that thing. End-grained oak, red oak, by the way, is terrible for this type of a project. Some lessons are learned the hard way, and that's how we learned this lesson. Making sure that the thing is dead level before I pour the clear on the top. And I would pour the clear and get some bubbles and sand it out. And at one point I actually took this piece out into the front room where I thought it would be safe. And a kitten stepped in it. I had to do another pour after that. Now if you remember way back when, I made a chess set and I used some 1.5 by 1.5 mahogany and black walnut. Well, these are the scraps to that. So in keeping with using up scrap stuff, I got the idea that I would take these guys and cut them into little bitty squares and use them to go around the outside and make this table just a little bit bigger. Sanding all sides. This is a little trick here with the sanding block. Alright, now what I'm doing with these pieces of unistrut are keeping everything in alignment. It was just easier to keep them in a line like a train here. Putting the glue on one, activator on another, squeezing it together, pushing it over, and continuing on down the line. And you can see how thick that epoxy is on that table behind the unistrut. And after I put this together and I put it on the table to create the outside border, I added several more layers of epoxy to seal it and to make it, look like the glass surface. Sanding these guys off with a drum sander to make sure they're all exactly the same height. because, as I said, we don't want things to be a different height anymore going forward. CA glue, little blue tape down so I don't stick it to the bench by mistake. The CA glue only has to hold it long enough for the first layer of epoxy, and then that glue is basically doing nothing. It doesn't need to do anything. As I said, I go around with the paintbrush to make sure everything is sealed up good. We're dealing with end grain here again, so 2 or 3 layers of this went down. Sanding it, pouring a cover. You can see that I had already put 1 layer down, and I'm adding the second here. And I continued this until I got 0 bubbles. I would lay a layer down, sand it off, another layer down, sand it off. Rinse and repeat with the torch here to get rid of the bubbles. And of course we drop something right in the center of it. Now here I'm going to start working on the legs. The concept of the legs was to put some crossbars in made out of dowels to continue the dowel theme within the table. There's not much milling going to happen in this video because it's not. We seem like we lose viewers when we do a lot of milling, but here's a leg being cut out. The leg was, I don't know if bent is the right way to say this. It had a curvature to the leg. I don't use tabs if I can avoid it. I just leave a 30 seconds of wood on the bottom and then go back around with a flush trim bit on my router. I just think it's easier, and I don't have to keep replacing the wasteboard. As you can see, 1/4 inch flush trim bit with a bottom bearing. Flip the piece over and take that little edge off. Very easy and very fast. Alright, so I decided to break out my Izzy Swan mortising machine here that I haven't used in a while. Let's see if I can cut a 1-inch mortise there. I've decided to go with loose tenon joinery. So let's see, just for fun. How'd we do? Not too shabby. Sunlight's messing with you. Here, I'll give you a little close-up look of this thing in action. It's pretty incredible how accurate this thing is made out of plywood. It's not 100%, but it's accurate enough for me. And again, it's loose tenon joinery, so you want a little bit of play in things. Here I'm adding a 3/16 round over to every piece all the way around. I did a great job on those dowels. See how round they are on the edges? Obviously I didn't round them, they were round when I purchased them. Here we're going to glue things together. I'm using a skewer there, a bamboo skewer to put the glue inside there. I learned that from Matthias. It's just easier to get it in there and put it all the way around. I put it on both surfaces. I put it on the uprights and the dowels on the ends. Putting them through till they're flush. And off camera, you didn't see it, but I had put letters and numbers on the dowel so they all went back exactly as they were, because they're not all 100% equal. They're a little different. There's little nuances to those dowels when you buy them. And here I'm putting the glue on with the loose tenons. I didn't show cutting these out on the mill. It's basically a profile cut, pretty straightforward. Use the mortising machine to make the mortises. We throw the tops on here. Working as quickly as I can because I didn't have any Titebond 3. This is Titebond 2 I'm using, and not sponsored by them, but Was using Titebond 2, and we all know that it seals up faster than Titebond 3, so I was working as quickly as I could. Came together rather nicely. Trying to remove as much of that squeeze out as I can. And I only have 2 of those long Bessies, so I had to break out the pipe clamps, which means I had to rearrange things on the bench, lay the piece on its side to make this work. But we get through it. Again, went together very nicely. And you can just barely make out the hole there by my right hand underneath. That's how I fastened the top, by drilling a hole right there. Putting the screws up through the bottom with an oversized hole. And here it is, all assembled. We're going to add some lacquer for a finish here. I started working on this here and putting the lacquer down, and it dawned on me I do have a dust collection hose there off to the left. You can't see it, drawing the fumes out. I've got the dust collector running, and as I started to do that, I realized I forgot something. Stopped and got that thing. Make sure you're wearing a dust mask or some sort of a mask when you're doing this. It'll give you a good headache if you don't. It's not good for you. Long-term effects are terrible. But all in all, this thing came out pretty sharp. I think I put on 6 coats of this gloss lacquer. Some folks like the satin. I'm still old school. I like things to shine. So 6 coats of gloss lacquer, not sanding between coats. Getting around those dowels was a little tricky, but we did it. And there you have it. As always, we appreciate you watching. Thank you. Give us a like, share, and subscribe. Check out the description below for some savings. And we'll catch you on the next one.